Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever heard the saying, a wise man knows what to say, but a wiser man knows when to say nothing at all? See, that's the difference between being smart and being wise. Now listen up, because I'm about to tell you something that could change the way you think, the way you act, and maybe even the way you love. An intelligent person, a truly smart man, never tells a woman these four things. And if he does, oh, trust me, he better be ready for the consequences. Not everything needs to be said. Silence is powerful. Think about it. We live in a world where everybody wants to be heard. Social media, conversations, relationships. People feel the need to express every thought, every feeling, every plan, every mistake. But an intelligent person understands something deeper. They understand that words once spoken can never be taken back. They understand that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one left unsaid. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation where you said something in the heat of the moment and instantly regretted it? Maybe it was an argument with a loved one and you let emotions get the best of you. You threw words like daggers, thinking you were making a point. But later, when the anger settled, those words lingered in the air like a wound that couldn't be undone. That's the power of words. They can build bridges or burn them down in an instant. Now, think about the opposite. Imagine a moment where you wanted to respond, where every fiber of your being wanted to react, but instead you took a deep breath and chose silence. You walked away. You let time do the talking instead of your emotions. And later, when things calmed down, you realized that silence saved you. It saved your dignity. It saved a relationship. It saved you from saying something you could never take back. Silence is powerful because it gives you control. It allows you to observe. It allows you to calculate. It allows you to understand before you react. And in a world that constantly demands a response, the one who knows when to stay silent is the one who truly holds power. Consider a successful businessman negotiating a deal. He doesn't reveal his entire strategy up front. He listens. He watches. He lets the other person talk, revealing their intentions, their weaknesses, their motivations. Then, when the moment is right, he speaks with precision, choosing words that carry weight. His silence wasn't ignorance, it was strategy. Or take the example of a wise grandfather sitting at the dinner table, listening to the younger generation argue over who's right and who's wrong. He doesn't jump into every debate. He doesn't waste words trying to prove himself. But when he does speak, it's something worth hearing. Even in relationships, silence plays a role. A strong man knows that not every battle needs to be fought with words. He knows that sometimes his actions will speak louder. He doesn't need to explain himself constantly. He doesn't need to justify his every move. He simply lets his consistency, his loyalty, and his energy do the talking. A woman who understands a strong man knows that silence is not distance, it's depth. And let's not forget the greatest example of all, nature. Have you ever stood in the presence of a mighty mountain? It doesn't move. It doesn't speak, yet its silence commands respect. The ocean, vast and deep, doesn't need to shout to remind you of its power. Even in a storm, the most dangerous part is not the waves crashing, it's the deep silence before they rise. That is the kind of power silence holds. Too often we think that silence means weakness, that if we don't respond, we are losing. But in reality, silence is the weapon of the wise. It protects, it strengthens. It allows you to choose your battles carefully. So the next time you feel the urge to speak out of anger, the need to prove yourself, or the pressure to explain every little detail of your life, pause. Think. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Will my words add value or will they take something away? because once words leave your lips, they belong to the world. But silence belongs to you. An intelligent person knows this. And that's why they don't waste words. They use them when it truly matters. Honesty is the foundation of any strong relationship. But there's a fine line between being honest and oversharing. An intelligent person knows this and understands the value of discretion. Not every mistake from the past needs to be spoken. Not every misstep deserves to be unearthed, and not every error should be laid bare. The past is a place of learning, but it doesn't have to become a permanent part of your present. When it comes to mistakes, some things are better left unsaid. We've all been there. Those moments when we feel an overwhelming need to confess our past wrongs, thinking that laying it all out will cleanse us or make the relationship stronger. You believe that sharing every detail of your missteps is a way to show vulnerability and gain trust. But in truth, oversharing can create unnecessary complications. Let's consider a real-life scenario. You've been in a new relationship for a few months. Everything is going well. And one evening during a deep conversation, you feel the urge to confess every mistake you've ever made in past relationships. You reveal times when you were unfaithful, when you lied, or when you made bad decisions. At first, you feel relieved. It's like a weight has been lifted off your chest. But over time, you notice a shift. Your partner, who once saw you as trustworthy and dependable, begins to question your loyalty. They start to bring up those past mistakes during disagreements, even though they have nothing to do with your current relationship. This is the consequence of revealing too much. You've given them ammunition that can be used against you in the future. Those mistakes, which were supposed to stay in the past, now have a foothold in your present. This doesn't mean you should lie or hide the truth. Honesty is vital, but it's about knowing which truths need to be spoken and which ones should remain unspoken. Oversharing can also affect how you're perceived in professional settings. Imagine you're in a job interview and the interviewer asks you about a time you faced a challenge. Instead of sticking to a brief professional answer, you decide to delve into every mistake you've made at previous jobs, times when you were late, times when you missed deadlines or conflicts with colleagues. In an effort to appear honest, you inadvertently paint yourself as unreliable or unfit for the position. Your intention was to be open, but the result is that the interviewer now sees you through the lens of your past mistakes rather than your current qualifications, not confessions. It's not about hiding who you are or pretending to be perfect. It's about recognizing that not every detail of your past needs to be shared. People are complex, and everyone has made mistakes. But bringing those mistakes into every conversation doesn't help you grow. It holds you back. Consider the example of a wise leader. This leader has made countless mistakes on their journey, but they don't feel the need to recount every single one. Instead, they focus on the lessons learned from those mistakes. They don't dwell on the past because they know that what truly matters is how they've grown and how they move forward. When they do speak about their past, they do so with purpose, to inspire, to teach, and to show others that mistakes are part of the process, not the destination. Similarly, in friendships, oversharing past mistakes can create unnecessary tension. Let's say you're having a heart-to-heart with a close friend, and you suddenly feel the urge to confess something you did years ago. Maybe you said something hurtful about them behind their back, or didn't support them when they needed you. While this confession may provide temporary relief, it could also damage the trust between you. Your friend may forgive you, but they may also start to question other aspects of your relationship. Was there more you weren't honest about? Are you still capable of betraying their trust? The key here is balance. You should be open, but you should also be selective. Not every part of your past needs to be relived in the present, especially if it no longer reflects who you are. The mistakes you've made don't define you, and constantly bringing them up only gives them more power over your life. Moreover, when you make the choice to let certain mistakes remain in the past, you're showing maturity and growth. You're acknowledging that you've learned from those experiences, but you're also choosing not to let them dictate your current reality. You're not hiding anything. You're simply choosing to focus on who you are now rather than who you were then. An intelligent person knows that the past can't be erased, but it also doesn't need to be worn like a badge. Mistakes are meant to be learned from, not continuously confessed. They shape who we are, but they don't define us. Oversharing can trap you in the past, but discretion allows you to move forward with confidence and clarity. In your relationships, whether personal or professional, be mindful of what you choose to share. Honesty is always important, but so is wisdom. Some mistakes are better left unsaid, not because you're hiding the truth, but because you're choosing to focus on the present and the future. You're choosing to grow beyond your mistakes rather than letting them weigh you down. And that in itself is a sign of true intelligence. Money has a strange way of changing things. It changes relationships, it changes trust, and sometimes it even changes how people see you. An intelligent person understands this and knows that not every financial detail needs to be shared. Whether you have a lot or little, revealing too much about your financial situation can lead to unnecessary problems, expectations, and even disappointments. Think about it. When you tell someone exactly how much money you have, whether it's your partner, your friends, or even your family, you change the dynamic of that relationship. If they know you have a lot, suddenly expectations rise. You might start to hear things like, "You can afford it, why don't you help me out?" Or, "You've got money, why are you acting like you don't?" On the flip side, if they know you don't have much, they might start treating you differently, either with pity, judgment, or even with a hidden sense of superiority. Now, let's look at some real life situations. Imagine a man who recently got a big promotion at work. His salary doubled and he's finally in a comfortable place financially. Excited about his success, he shares the news with his extended family. At first, they congratulate him, how proud they are. But within weeks, things start to change. Relatives who never asked for help before suddenly start reaching out. A cousin needs money to fix his car. An uncle needs help paying off some debt. His parents subtly suggest that since he's making more, he should start covering extra expenses for them. Now, this man is in a tough spot. He wants to help, but he also worked hard for his success. He realizes that sharing too much about his financial situation has put him in a position where people now expect things from him. And if he says no, he risks looking selfish, even though he has every right to manage his money how he sees fit. The same thing happens in relationships. Let's say a man starts dating someone and early on he shares details about how much he makes, his savings and his investments. At first, everything seems fine. But as time goes on, the dynamic shifts. His partner starts making comments like, "You should be going on more expensive vacations," or, "Why are we still living in this apartment when you can afford something bigger?" Suddenly, his financial situation is no longer just as it's a factor in every decision. And if things ever go wrong in the relationship, the very money he was open about can become a tool against him. On the other hand, if he had been more private about his finances, he would have been able to see the relationship develop naturally without money being a major influence. He could have understood whether his partner was with him for who he is, not for what he has. But what if you're on the other end of the spectrum? What if you're struggling financially? Should you tell people everything about your hardships? While there's nothing wrong with seeking support, sharing too much about your struggles can sometimes backfire. People might start seeing you as someone who always needs help. You might start hearing things like, "Oh, he can't afford it. Let's not invite him." Or, "She's always struggling. I don't know if I can rely on her." It can change how people treat you, even if they don't mean to. An intelligent person knows that money is a tool, not an identity. You are not defined by how much you have or don't have. Your financial situation is personal, And unless there's a real reason to share, keeping it private allows you to move freely without judgment, expectation, or pressure. This doesn't mean you should be secretive in an unhealthy way. If you're married or in a serious relationship, financial transparency is important. But even then, there are boundaries. Transparency doesn't mean giving someone full control or sharing every minor detail. It means having conversations about financial goals, responsibilities, and shared expenses without making money the center of the relationship. Look at the most successful people in the world. They don't walk around telling everyone exactly how much they have. They don't discuss every dollar they make or every investment they're working on. They understand that financial privacy is not about deception, it's about control. It's about keeping your power. Another example is a businessman working on a big deal. If he shares too much about his financial position, his negotiating power weakens. If the other party knows he's desperate for money, they'll take advantage of that and offer him less. If they know he's wealthy, they might try to overcharge him. But by keeping his financial details private, he keeps control of the situation. The same principle applies in everyday life. Whether it's discussing your salary with coworkers, your savings with friends, or your financial goals with casual acquaintances, there's wisdom in knowing what to share and what to keep to yourself. Not everyone needs to know everything. Money can be a great tool for freedom, comfort, and security. But when you share too much about it, it can also become a source of stress, manipulation, and conflict. An intelligent person knows that financial privacy is not about being secretive, it's about being wise. It's about protecting yourself from unnecessary expectations, judgments, and pressures. So the next time you feel the urge to share details about your financial situation, pause. Ask yourself, does this person really need to know? Because once you put that information out there, well, they can't take it back. And in the game of life, the one who controls information controls power. Your next move should always be your best kept secret. An intelligent person never reveals their plans before they execute them because they understand that not everyone watching them is cheering for them. Some are waiting for them to fail. Others are silently competing. And a few might even try to try-to them before they get the chance to succeed. Keeping your goals and future steps to yourself is not about secrecy, it's about strategy. It's about ensuring that nothing and no one interferes with the path you are walking. Think about it. How many times have you shared a plan with someone and instead of encouragement, you received doubt? You tell a friend about the business you want to start, and they hit you with a list of reasons why it might not work. You talk about a new fitness journey, and someone jokes about how long you'll last before quitting. Even worse, you confide in someone about a major life decision, and before you know it, they've taken the same idea and made it their own. It happens more often than we realize. Not everyone sees your vision the way you do. Not everyone will understand why you're working late nights, making sacrifices, or taking risks. And the moment you share your plans, you invite opinions that can create doubt, slow you down, or make you question yourself. Imagine an artist working on a masterpiece. Before the painting is complete, before the colors have blended perfectly, before the details have come to life, the painting looks messy. If the artist shows it too soon, people might not understand the vision. They might criticize it, discourage it, or even suggest changes that don't align with what the artist intended. But if the artist waits, if they keep working in silence and only reveal the painting when it's complete, people see the final masterpiece, not the messy process. This is the same with your goals. The process is not always pretty. There are struggles, setbacks, moments of doubt. If you share your plans too early, people might only see the struggle and not the end result. They might judge the process before they understand the outcome. That's why the most successful people move in silence. Look at the world's greatest entrepreneurs, leaders, and innovators. They don't announce every move they're going to make. They don't go on social media broadcasting their next step. They work in the background, they strategize, they build, and then when the time is right, they reveal their success. Because by then the work is done and no one can stop it. Even in personal growth, keeping your plans private is powerful. Let's say you decide to change your habits, improve your mindset, or work on becoming a better version of yourself. If you announce it to everyone, you open yourself up to judgment. People might remind you of your past mistakes, tell you that change is impossible, or doubt your ability to stay committed. But if you silently work on yourself, you make progress without announcing every step, then one day they'll see the change in you. And by then, their opinions won't matter. Another example is career moves. Suppose you're planning to switch jobs, start a business, or go back to school. If you share your plans too soon, you might face resistance. A boss who gets wind of your plan might try to make things difficult for you. A friend who doesn't believe in your dream might discourage you. Even family members who want the best for you might question your choices, unintentionally planting doubt in your mind. But if you make your move silently, if you prepare behind the scenes, then when you finally take that step, it's already too late for doubt to stop you. Relationships, too, benefit from privacy. Not every detail of your personal life needs to be shared with the world. If you're building something meaningful with someone, keeping certain aspects private protects the relationship from outside negativity. People love to give opinions on what they don't understand. They analyze, they compare, they judge. But when you keep your relationship sacred, when you move without needing validation from the outside world, you create something stronger, something built on trust, not public perception. Even in friendships, discretion is key. Not everyone around you is a true supporter. Some people listen just to gather information. Some smile in front of you, but secretly envy your progress. Some pretend to care, but they're waiting to see you fail. When you keep your plans to yourself, you protect yourself from unnecessary negativity. It's not about isolation, it's about wisdom. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. It's about understanding that sometimes the best way to win is to let the results speak for themselves. There's an old saying, a lion doesn't have to announce that it's a lion. It just is. The same applies to success. You don't have to tell people what you're going to do. You don't have to prove anything with words. Just do the work. Stay focused. Move in silence. And when the time is right, let the world see the results. An intelligent person knows that the loudest moves are made in silence, because by the time people hear about it, it's already done. And that is real power. An intelligent person never tells a woman how much he fears losing her. Not because he doesn't care, not because he doesn't value her, but because he understands the power of perception, balance, and emotional control. Love, when it is real, should be mutual, built on respect, understanding, and shared emotions. But when one person openly exposes their deepest fear of loss, the dynamic shifts. It can lead to insecurity, imbalance, and even the slow erosion of respect. Let's think about this from a psychological perspective. Human nature is wired in such a way that we tend to value things that feel rare, things that seem secure within themselves. When you express too much fear of losing someone, it signals a level of emotional dependence that can work against you. It's not about playing games, it's about maintaining self-respect. If someone knows beyond a doubt that you are terrified of losing them, they may begin to take you for granted, not intentionally, not cruelly, but subtly over time. Take, for example, a man in a relationship who constantly reminds his partner, I don't know what I would do without you. At first, it sounds romantic, it's sweet, and it makes his partner feel cherished. But over time, the weight of that statement starts to shift. Instead of being a simple expression of love, it begins to create an expectation and unspoken understanding that he will always be there no matter what, that no matter how she treats him, no matter what happens, he is afraid to lose her. And when that fear is present, the power dynamic starts to change. Now let's flip the scenario. Imagine two people in a relationship, both equally committed, both loving each other deeply, but neither is living in fear of losing the other. Instead of clinging to each other out of insecurity, they choose each other every day out of love. They know that the relationship is strong, not because one person is afraid, but because both are willing to nurture and protect it. That kind of love is built on respect, not fear. When a man openly expresses too much fear of losing a woman, it can sometimes lead to behaviors that are counterproductive. He might start overcompensating, trying too hard to please, saying yes when he should be setting boundaries. He might start neglecting his own needs, sacrificing too much of himself in an attempt to hold on to the relationship. But love that is kept alive by fear is not truly love, it is attachment, and attachment without balance leads to unhealthy dynamics. Now, this doesn't mean a man should act distant or unemotional. It doesn't mean he shouldn't express love, affection, or appreciation. On the contrary, an intelligent man loves deeply, but he does so with confidence. He expresses love, but he does not beg for it. He shows appreciation, but he does not live in fear of losing it. I think about the strongest men in history, leaders, warriors, legends. They loved deeply, but they never clung to anything out of fear. They understood that strength and love comes from a place of choice, not desperation. A man who knows his worth does not fear abandonment because he understands that the right person will stay not because of fear, but because of value, respect, and shared purpose. Another example is seen in friendships. When one friend constantly expresses fear of losing another, it creates an imbalance. The friend who feels needed too much may begin to feel overwhelmed. They might pull away not because they don't care, but because the weight of someone else's fear becomes too much to carry. The same thing happens in romantic relationships. No one wants to feel like they are responsible for another person's emotional survival. Love should be a shared experience, not a weight placed on one person's shoulders. This principle applies beyond relationships and into personal growth. A man who fears losing a woman too much might start neglecting his dreams, his ambitions, his individuality. He might prioritize the relationship to a point where he loses himself. But here's the truth: the most attractive thing a man can have is a purpose, a passion, a sense of self beyond the relationship. When a man has a strong foundation within himself, he doesn't have to fear losing anyone because he knows that he brings value to the table. And when a woman sees a man who is confident in himself, who loves but does not beg, she respects him more. There's an old saying, you can't lose what's meant for you. If a woman truly loves you, she will stay not because you fear losing her, but because she sees your value. Fear does not create loyalty, respect does. So an intelligent man loves, but he does not fear. He cherishes, but he does not cling. He appreciates, but he does not beg for validation. He understands that love is a dance of mutual respect, not a desperate attempt to hold on to someone who should already want to stay. And most importantly, he knows that the moment he lets go of fear, he gains something far more powerful: peace, self-respect, and a relationship built on true strength rather than insecurity. Because the strongest love is not the one built on fear of loss, it is the one that thrives in the presence of mutual choice. An intelligent person never reveals his next move, not out of secrecy, but out of wisdom and the understanding of timing. Life is a series of moves, much like a game of chess. You don't reveal your strategy to your opponent until the checkmate is unavoidable. Your plans, ambitions, and next steps should be protected, because when you reveal your hand too soon, you lose the element of surprise and give others the chance to interfere with your progress. In today's world, where social media makes it easy to broadcast every goal, every dream, and every intention, there's a constant temptation to announce what we're working on. We want to share our excitement, we want validation, and we want others to see that we're moving forward. But the truth is, not everyone who hears about your plans has your best interests at heart. Some people will silently hope for your failure, while others might even take active steps to disrupt your progress. This is why keeping your next move private isn't about being secretive, it's about protecting your dreams. Imagine you're working on a new business idea. It's innovative, fresh, and you're excited about its potential. You tell your friends, family, and even post about it online. What happens next? You start getting feedback, some positive, but much of it is filled with doubt, skepticism, and unsolicited advice. Someone might even take your idea and run with it before you've had the chance to execute it. Your momentum slows because now, instead of focusing on your plan, you're bogged down by external opinions, questions, and possibly even competition. The same thing happens in your career. Suppose you're working on a promotion at work, or you're planning to start a new role at a different company. If you share this information too early, before it's solidified, you risk losing leverage. Your current employer might try to counter your plans, making things difficult for you before you can transition. Or colleagues who are envious of your progress might begin to undermine you, spreading rumors or creating obstacles that slow you down. In personal relationships, the principle of not revealing your next move is equally powerful. Let's say you're working on improving yourself, whether that's physically, mentally, or emotionally. If you share every detail of your journey with others, you invite their expectations into your process. Now, you're not just working on yourself for your own growth, but you're also trying to meet the expectations of those who know about your plans. What happens if you hit a setback? Instead of quietly adjusting and moving forward, you now feel the weight of explaining yourself to others. You've given them a front row seat to your progress, and that creates unnecessary pressure. Now, think about those who move in silence, the people who work behind the scenes, quietly making progress without feeling the need to broadcast every step. When they finally achieve success, it feels almost effortless. The world sees the result, not the process, and that creates a sense of awe and admiration. They didn't have to tell anyone about their plans. They just showed up with the results. That's power. Take, for example, an athlete training for a major competition. If they broadcast every workout, every challenge, and every goal, they open themselves up to judgment, criticism, and often sabotage. Competitors might analyze their training, looking for weaknesses to exploit. But the athlete who trains in silence, who lets the performance speak for itself, arrives at the competition with the element of surprise. No one knows their strengths or strategies until it's too late to react. That's how you win. Even in friendships, discretion is key. If you're planning to make a big life change, like moving to a new city, starting a new relationship, or making a significant career move, telling everyone in your circle too soon can lead to complications. Not because your friends don't care about you, but because they might project their own fears and insecurities onto your situation. They might say things like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Or "What if it doesn't work out?" Their doubts can start to cloud your own judgment, making you second guess yourself. But if you keep your next move to yourself until it's done, you maintain control over your path. You can listen to your own intuition, free from external noise. There's a certain magic in moving quietly. When you don't announce your next step, you protect it from the energy and opinions of others. You give yourself the freedom to change direction if needed without feeling like you have to explain yourself. You allow your actions to speak louder than your words, and in doing so, you command more respect and admiration. This isn't about isolating yourself or not seeking advice. It's about understanding that not every move needs to be shared, especially in its infancy. There's a time to seek guidance and input, but there's also a time to guard your plans fiercely until they are fully formed. Once they are, and you've taken the necessary steps, then you can reveal your success. By then, it's too late for anyone to derail you, too late for doubts to seep in, and too late for competition to catch up. Think of life as a chessboard. Every move you make should be deliberate and calculated, but not every move needs to be announced. When you keep your next step to yourself, you retain the upper hand. You maintain control, not just over your plans, but over how and when others perceive your progress. This gives you a distinct advantage in any situation, whether it's your career, personal development, or relationships. In a world that constantly pushes us to share, to post, and to seek validation, there is immense power in holding your cards close. Your next move is your own, and it deserves the protection of your silence until the time is right to reveal it. By then, the move will speak for itself, and your success will be undeniable. An intelligent person never tells a woman all his weaknesses, not because he wants to hide who he truly is, but because he understands the importance of maintaining strength, balance, and self-respect in a relationship. There is a difference between vulnerability and exposing oneself entirely, and a wise man knows how to walk that fine line. He understands that while honesty is crucial, not every aspect of his inner struggles needs to be laid bare. Some things should be worked through in silence, with discipline and resilience, rather than expecting someone else to carry the weight of them. Life is full of challenges, and every man, no matter how strong, has weaknesses. These can be insecurities, fears, past traumas, or struggles with self-doubt. But here's the reality. When you reveal all your weaknesses to someone, especially too soon or too often, it can shift the dynamics of the relationship in ways that may not be in your favor. Love and respect are deeply intertwined. And while a woman may want to support you, she also wants to feel safe and secure in your presence. If you constantly reveal your weaknesses without demonstrating the strength to overcome them, you risk being seen as unreliable rather than vulnerable. Think about it like this. Imagine a ship in the middle of a storm. The captain knows the storm is dangerous. He knows the waves are high and the wind is howling. But if he panics and tells the passengers, I have no idea what to do, we might not make it out of this, what happens? The passengers begin to lose faith. Fear spreads. They no longer trust that the captain can steer them to safety. But if the captain, despite his fears, remains composed, reassures everyone, and focuses on finding a solution, the passengers feel safe, even if the situation is uncertain. This is how relationships work. A man can have weaknesses. Just like the captain might feel fear, but he must not allow those weaknesses to define him. A woman respects a man who can acknowledge his struggles while also showing the determination to overcome them. Strength doesn't mean pretending to be perfect. It means taking responsibility for your battles without letting them control you. Now, some might argue that in a loving relationship, there should be complete openness. While it's true that emotional connection is built on honesty, the manner in which you reveal your struggles matters. If a man constantly leans on a woman for emotional strength, always seeking reassurance, always exposing his deepest doubts without demonstrating personal growth, he risks turning the relationship into something unbalanced. Over time, instead of seeing him as a partner, she may start seeing him as someone she has to fix, someone she has to carry rather than walk beside. Let's take a real life example. Imagine a man who is struggling financially. He tells his woman, I don't know what to do. I feel like a failure. I might never be successful. While she may comfort him initially, over time, this creates a sense of uncertainty in her mind. She starts wondering, can he provide? Can he handle pressure? Can he lead? On the other hand, if the same man facing the same struggle tells her, I'm facing some financial challenges right now, but I'm working on a solution. It's tough, but I'll figure it out. The message is completely different. In both cases, he is being honest. But in the second scenario, he is showing resilience. He is acknowledging the problem without allowing it to define him. Another important aspect of this principle is understanding timing. If you are early in a relationship and immediately reveal every weakness, every insecurity, and every past trauma, you risk overwhelming the other person. They don't yet know you well enough to balance that information against your strengths. They may only see the struggles, not the fighter within you. But if, over time, you build a foundation of trust and stability, sharing your vulnerabilities becomes a sign of depth rather than desperation. Think of some of the most respected men in history, leaders, warriors, visionaries. Did they have weaknesses? Absolutely. Did they share them with the world? No. They carried their burdens with strength. They sought solutions, and they revealed only what was necessary to maintain trust and respect. This doesn't mean they never opened up to those closest to them, but they did so with wisdom, knowing that leadership in any form requires a balance of vulnerability and strength. Even in friendships, this principle applies. If a man constantly talks about his struggles without taking action, people begin to see him as someone who complains rather than someone who overcomes. They might offer sympathy at first, but eventually they lose confidence in him. However, if he shares his struggles while also demonstrating a proactive mindset, people respect him. They see him as someone who faces adversity with courage, not as someone who is consumed by it. This concept is also vital in professional life. Imagine a CEO addressing his employees. If he stands in front of them and says, I don't know if we're going to survive as a company, things are really bad and I feel lost, the employees will panic. Morale will drop. People will start looking for exits. But if he says, we are facing challenges, but we have a plan. It's going to take effort, but we will push through this. The energy is completely different. The employees still understand the reality of the situation, but they also see leadership, vision, and determination. This is how an intelligent man approaches his personal life. He understands that his woman should see his strength more than his struggles. She should feel that no matter what happens, he will find a way. This doesn't mean he must suffer in silence. Everyone needs support. But it means he must be careful about how much of his burden he places on the relationship. A strong woman wants a strong man, not a man who leans on her for all his emotional stability. At the core of this principle is self-mastery. A man who learns how to manage his emotions, who works through his weaknesses privately before revealing them selectively, becomes a man of depth, mystery, and strength. He becomes someone his woman can admire, someone she can trust to lead when times get tough. That kind of man doesn't just attract respect, he commands it. So an intelligent man keeps some of his weaknesses to himself, not because he wants to deceive, but because he understands that strength is not in the absence of weaknesses, but in the ability to rise above it. And when he does share, he does so in a way that inspires confidence rather than doubt. That is the kind of man who earns not just love, but unwavering respect. In the end, an intelligent man understands that true wealth